My son was compensated by the vaccine injury courts. He was actually diagnosed with serum sickness as a result of his 18-month well baby visit vaccines. One of the issues that I found was that I didn't know that he was experiencing vaccine issues prior to that last reaction that he had that was his most severe, which had him in and out of the hospital for 8 long weeks. He was seen by multiple specialists. He had seizures. He had a condition called thrombocytopenic purpura, where he looked like he had bruising all over his body. So over the course of the whole entire 8 weeks that we were in and out of the hospital and specialist office, not one of those, the specialists, well, all of them actually asked me if we had a history of SIDS in our family, if we had a history of autoimmune conditions in the family, if he had existing autoimmune conditions. And when I asked why it was that they were asking these questions, they said that those were all contraindications of vaccine reactions. They also asked me if he had prior vaccine reactions. I didn't know whether or not he had or not. I dutifully took my child in for every well baby visit and had him vaccinated. What ended up happening was that the immunologist had suggested that we cross-reference his record, get his medical records and cross-reference his vaccine records to all of the times that he was admitted into the emergency room or had unscheduled a doctor's visit. We ended up finding out that he had, within 48 hours, he had symptoms that matched the hepatitis B manufacturer inserts and his 12-month baby visit manufacturer inserts as well. And of course, at 18 months old, the reactions that he was showing, which they did determine were a result of those vaccines, also matched the manufacturer inserts for the symptoms. All of those incidents were viable in terms of the vaccine injury compensation program, and he was awarded through the vaccine court. And there was only a few doctors that actually knew what was going on. So when you were speaking to the fact, I forget who was speaking to the fact of the specialists who understand vaccine injury, my child had to go through several vaccine injuries with several different vaccines, because I know that most of us know when we take our child in, it's not usually just one vaccine that you're getting. So one of the issues with my child, and the reason that he ended up receiving a medical exemption, which was prior to SB 27, before all of this legislation started happening, was because of the fact that not one medical expert could pinpoint what component of which vaccine he received caused the reaction, because he received so many different vaccines, and most children do at a baby visit. They don't we don't normally get one vaccine at a baby visit. There's usually many vaccines. So with that, he was given a permanent medical exemption due to the fact that no one could tell me what component of the vaccines. And I found out that it could have been a reaction to the fetal cells that were there, that are in vaccines. It could have been the other toxins like formaldehyde and all the other ingredients. No one could tell me exactly what it was. So with that, he had to have a vaccine exemption for all vaccines. And the immunologist had said that the next shots could kill him. So at this point, SB 277 is forcing me to decide on choosing between my son's education and his life. And I think that that's something that needs to be taken into consideration. And he wouldn't qualify either.
So first of all, I appreciate the presentation. I think there are a lot of statements that that were made that do raise some questions. So again, I appreciate the presentation. Certainly, I think it would be important to get more information about exactly what happened in this case. I do, a lot of things were mentioned, for example, inserts, SIDS. So we know that SIDS rates have been going down. They're not associated with vaccines. All right, so SID rates have been going down with increased vaccination rates. When we talk about toxins in the vaccine, actually the level of formaldehyde in the vaccine is less than what in a pear that you eat. And by the way, your body normally produces formaldehyde as a byproduct of metabolism. There are no fetal cells in vaccines, so that's all right.
Please
let's
keep
be very
it down.
clear.
I just wanted to add that my son's settlement was not based on the CDC Pink Book. And in the federal vaccine court, they do not consider the CDC Pink Book. They have a separate vaccine injury table that they go by in terms of qualifying and awarding people who have had vaccine injuries. So the list of the CDC guidelines that are being proposed in SB 276, they are not even considered in the court of vaccine. I mean, they're not even considered in vaccine court. Those are not the symptoms that they go by in order to award people. And in terms of SB 276, if I were to have another child, my next child would not qualify under SB 276 either.
So she's referring to the National Vaccine Compensation Center. By the way, that is a no-fault system that was established by Congress. In fact, you've even heard someone testify we should actually repeal that. So it's interesting that there are people who want it repealed. I would make note that that's a no-fault compensation system. There are what they call table injuries. So, for example, one of the table injuries is that if you receive a vaccine and you faint and you fall, you get compensated for that injury, right? Doesn't mean that you shouldn't get future vaccines because you fainted when you got the vaccine. So the table injuries are a very different set of things than things that should lead to medical exemptions.